Pandemic hits. I lost my dad. Holidays are over. I have to get back in a plane and go to Singapore, right? And the plan had been at that point, you know, as often happens in these relocations or international postings, I'm going to go back and forth as needed. Family's going to relocate at the start of the next school year. There's always been a fair amount of work in my life. So if I'm doing say I'm doing 2 weeks, 2 weeks, right? It's not that different from the pattern my wife and I had built over the years. It's harder being a parent, but it's going okay. It's March. I'm working away in my office in Singapore. I'm hearing things that are happening in the States. There's international news, but I'm just buried in trying to get up to speed on this new job, right? And my boss, the CEO, comes in the office and he's like, bro, you got to take the next plane home. And I was kind of like, what do you mean? He's like, they're shutting down California. And I hadn't even really thought all that thing through. This is when like the worst case things were like, oh, like it'll blow over in a few weeks, right? Like the things that happened before. And I book a flight back to Los Angeles. I want to say it's like March 17th. Don't quote me. Whatever the last day that LA is open, right? And it's when, all like JFK looks like that chaos scene of like a war with all these people flying in. And I land in LA, like the last plane that lands, right? Before the city goes dark. It's like a science fiction movie. It's so crazy that I'm not even sure I can get an Uber. So I call like some old school car service that I haven't called in like a decade, that I have an account where somebody can show up with like your name on a sign just so I can like get home. And I think a week, 2 weeks, I'll be back to Singapore, whatever. And then it turns into what it turns into. And a couple of dynamics take place. A, we're all about like we've been talking about our greatest strengths or our greatest weakness. I am a warrior. I turn into a warrior in these situations. Like if we need, remember when you can't find toilet paper? Can't find toilet paper, I'll find toilet paper. You can't find this, I'll find that. And I turn on warrior survival mode. And I think I'm doing the family a service in this, not realizing how closed off I am, right? That everybody needs different things. And I'm in like war mode. Right? I'm working Singapore hours, so I'm like on Zooms from like 5 in the afternoon until 2 in the morning, and then sleeping and getting up and then getting whatever it needs to get. And like, I'm going to go out in the world and like get these things and find these things. And that's, creating distance at home because I think everybody gives the kind of love they think they want to get. Everybody gives the kind of mentoring they want to get, right? Without necessarily thinking through that may not be the kind of love the other person wants. That may not be the kind of mentoring the other person wants. And I'm so in survival mode that I'm giving my family what I think they want and what I think they need. But it turns out that's not actually what they want or need, right? And then also in all of our relationships, we have cadences, right? Like the time that we've been married and the time that I've been a parent, it's been, 3 weeks home, 1 week away, 3 weeks home, 10 days away, 2 weeks home, 2 days away, whatever. We've got a cadence. We're comfortable with it. Now we have to sit in this discomfort of first, too much time together. Like we haven't been together 24/7, no break, forever. Like, and that's got its own stresses and challenges. And with it, just the general pressure of nobody really knows what's going on. And then as things lift and I have to go away, now I can't go to Singapore for 2 weeks because I have to go sit in a, quarantine for 2 weeks. So to get the ROI out of the trip, I got to go for 2 months or 3 months. And so then everything's challenged by too much time together and too much time apart, right? So all the compromises and agreements that get made in any kind of relationship in life and in work and all that stuff are all blown up when we're trying to create new ones. And it was a very, very, very difficult situation for work, for my marriage, for my parenting, for all that stuff. And then layered on top of that is, I dropped out of high school because I couldn't stay in like one building, for like 9 hours. And now I got to stay in one building for like 24 hours. And I remember at some point, and I'm finding illegal gyms to work out at, like my meds is working out, right? Like that's what keeps my head on. And so I'm seeking medication, right? So I'm finding there's a gym over here where they don't want to lose their life savings, so you can go in the side door, and there's a gym over there where they don't care about the rules. And my wife is sure that I'm going to come home with COVID, every day. And I have to have the conversation that these are my meds. I don't think I can survive in this. We got to work out that this is okay, or I don't think I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And so everything has to get redefined, right? I mean, I can't think about a time in our life where everything had to get redefined at once like that.
All at once, everything.
And I am such a horrible creature of habit and such a warrior that makes me particularly bad at it.
Yeah. So how'd you work it out?
Trying to change to the degree that any person can change. Trying to find empathy in each other's situations and unmet need. And a fuck ton of therapy, individually and, couples therapy.
Coming out the other end of these challenges, father passes away. Challenges in the family, pandemic, and then a work relationship that you got a lot out of that job, but you had a challenging relationship with your boss. It was a very difficult time. And watching you deal with that from a distance, and the times where we would talk, hearing that strain in your voice, while also just bullshitting and catching up or whatever, there was a moment where I was like, what's going to happen with this guy? But you get through, and now you're on the other end. What's different about you?
I think that's for those around me to sort of figure out if I'm different.
Call your wife right now.
If I'm, I think it's up to those around me to figure out what's different, or it's different enough. It was interesting because I think, diamonds are made under pressure, right? Tough situations force you to grow or fold. I'm a big believer, and this caused problems during lockdowns, but quitting isn't an option. So you have to figure out how to grow and figure out how to rethink. I learned a ton in my time there, and it was also very difficult. And part of the difficulty came from, the dynamics of that culture. And I also realized that part of the difficulty came from me being what I thought were tactical marketing decisions that were being questioned or challenged. Hey, I really know how to do this. How do you micromanage my business? Part of that was actually I would have made different strategic decisions about the business, not the marketing. And I am trying to relitigate that in the marketing. And I had to realize that that's on me.
Yeah.
Right? That to some degree, I was not you're a soldier. And, what did Jeff Bezos talk about? It's the loud dinner table conversation. But then once an agreement is made, you got to lean into it 120%. And the part that was on me is I was trying to relitigate some of those things as the CMO.
Yeah.
And that's not right. And I have to own that. And I had to learn that. The inspiration in that is it made me start to think, maybe it's time to make the big decisions. And so as part of my transition plan, I decided to go to Wharton and complete their advanced management training program to try to fill in some operational gaps as somebody who came up through marketing so I could take a shot. And it was interesting because it happened at a time that my son was starting kindergarten. And so I could also be a role model of, look, daddy's going to school too. At the same time, he's transitioning from preschool to kindergarten. And I'm look, hey, learning is a lifetime path, and it's something that we lean into as a family, and it's something that's valuable as a family.